Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Real. Star Trek is a long-running franchise that has a dedicated fan base and a huge impact on pop culture in general. I am a fan, and I've watched each of the main 5 series in varied degree. With 703 episodes across the main 5, there are bound to be ones that don't live up to the series in general. Today I'm going to be reviewing the worst rated Star Trek episodes. So the ranking is based on their IMDb score, and they have to be an episode of either the original series, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, or Enterprise. I was going to do the worst 10 episodes, but there were 5 episodes that scored 5.7, and that would have been much too long a video, so I'm looking at the worst 9. Number 9. Let He Who Is Without Sin, Deep Space Nine. Score 5.6. I don't really enjoy Deep Space Nine, and I only made it a couple of episodes into the second season before I gave up on it, so I was worried that I would have no idea what was going on in this episode. But yay! Worf is here! I can see why this episode has a low rating right off the bat, because it seems to detach itself from whatever main storyline is going on in Season 5. But I don't mind that. So the episode begins with Odo and Sisko making comments about Dax's relationship with Worf, and Sisko suggests that maybe they should tone down the sexy times because they both keep ending up in sickbay. Dax and Worf are heading to Risa, which Worf is just so thrilled about. He's even more uptight than I remember him being in Next Gen, but man, I love Michael Dorn's voice.
I'm looking forward to spending some time alone with Lieutenant Commander Dax.
Dr. Bashir and his Kira lookalike Dabo girlfriend want to go to Risa too, and Quark also invites himself along. En route, Quark starts handing out... what are those? Is he giving them sex toys? Anyway, they go to Risa and everyone is pretty horned up. Quark goes off with 2 women. Get it, Quark? Bashir and Dabo Girl go off together and Dax gets into his swimsuit, giving Worf a Klingon boner. Vanessa Williams shows up and cock-blocks him, and we found out that Dax's brain slug was killed by her. Death by Snoo Snoo! Dax and Worf have a lover's tiff, and then he's accosted by some dude trying to get him to join his cause. Worf is swayed by the Essentialists' rally and is supportive when they attack the hut thingy. There's a lot of relationship drama going on, and Dax and Worf spend most of this episode lame arguing. So Bashir and Dabo Girl are actually going through some sort of breakup ritual, which Quark is bored by, and wait, what the fuck is going on now? There is some serious girl-on-girl clay stroking going on. You do you, ladies. Worf gets pissed and goes missing, Quark and Bashir want to go skinny dipping together, and the weather grid screws up and it starts pissing it down. It was Worf who sabotaged the weather, and even more relationship drama ensues. Worf tells Dax about the time he accidentally killed a boy as a kid, which is a touching story, and Dax is all like, that explains so much. Anywho, let's move on. Now there are earthquakes, and Worf's beliefs regarding the Essentialists changes, and he punches the dude out. Then he and Dax go skinny dipping. The end. Okay, so this wasn't great. It seemed like an out-of-place episode for the tone the show has established. There is so much talking and back-and-forth relationship stuff that it feels a bit like a rom-com, but with a secondary story involving the Essentialists, which is fine, except for how much Worf flip-flop between supporting them and not giving a shit. The story between Bashir and the Dabo Girl seemed pointless, unless... has this couple been a thing for a while or something? I don't know. Quark is always a nice bit of fun, so there's that. This episode is okay. It's not terrible, but the tone is a little all over the place. It wasn't boring, that's for sure. In fact, it felt rather cluttered, so I see why it was rated fairly low. Number 8. The Way to Eden. The original series. Score 5.5. The Way to Eden starts off okay. Enterprise is chasing a stolen Starfleet vessel, and they have to beam over the 6 occupants when the ship explodes. But the people they beam aboard are a bunch of weird hippies, and Chekhov seems to recognize one of them. The hippies start shouting for Herbert, whoever that is, and Spock seems to know what's going on, which is good because I sure as hell don't. The hippies want to go to Eden, which may or may not exist. Chekhov has relationship drama with one of the women who used to be normal, and then the discount Ferengi has some sort of disease, which is a problem? Wait, now they're singing. Why are they singing? No, seriously, why are they doing that, and why does this guy have purple eyebrows? So they take over the ship, knock out the crew, and beam down to Eden, which they magically find. The main characters go after them, but not Uhura, because she's absent from this episode. Boo! Turns out that Eden is a dump, something Chekhov discovers when he sticks his hand where they don't belong. Everything is made of either acid or poison, something this guy discovers when he eats a fruit and promptly dies. But the actor does a piss-poor job of staying still. The insane leader guy doesn't want to leave the death planet and also eats a fruit and dies. But seriously, where did they find these actors? This one can't stay still either. The surviving hippies, which they allow to sit on the grass, even though they just established that the grass is made of acid, gets beamed up to the ship. The end. Aside from Chekhov being allowed to make out with someone rather than Captain Kirk, this episode is really annoying. It's like The Children Shall Lead, which I will be discussing shortly, but with irritating adults rather than irritating kids. Also, they make a big deal about Eden being in Romulan space, and they need to be careful a war doesn't break out, but that plot point goes absolutely nowhere and no Romulans show up at all. It's a garbage episode and it warrants being on the list. Number 7. These are the Voyages. Enterprise. Score 5.3. I will never forgive them for killing off Trip. There, I said it. It's not a terrible episode, but after 4 seasons of Enterprise, it decides to finish long after the fact and have the events recreated to a holodeck program run by Will Riker. No, dude. This is their show, and I get they were trying to bring all the Star Treks together. Can I mention the montage of Space: The Final Frontier? But it felt like the main cast was sidelined in their own finale. I think they went about ending the series the right way by bringing Shram back into the fray and showing the events leading up to the formation of the Federation, but having Troy and Riker throughout this episode and having them keep pausing and discussing the holodeck program really brings me out of the essence of the episode. What they should have done is had the episode run as normal in real time with no Riker and no Troy messing around in the holodeck. And also they could have not killed Trip off, thank you very much. But at least Malcolm survives, yay! That's what hurts even more. I read that if the series had continued, Trip wouldn't have been killed and Shran would have joined the cast, which would have been awesome! I'm okay with the bones of this episode, but the frame around it, I'm not a fan of. Number 6. Threshold. Voyager. Score 5.3. Threshold is not a good episode at all. The story for this one is Tom Paris takes one of the shuttles and breaks the warp barrier by hitting warp 10, which allows him to exist in every point in the universe in one go. After he returns, he experiences an allergic reaction to water, and his lungs cannot process oxygen anymore. He is confined to sickbay behind a force field and becomes sicker and sicker until he eventually dies. That night, the Doctor hears some weird noises, and surprise! Paris is alive again, but now comes with an extra heart. He appears to be evolving, but his new DNA comes with some serious mood swings. The Doctor attempts to treat the problem, but Paris breaks free and promptly kidnaps the captain. He takes a shuttle and makes her cross the warp 10 barrier. They both evolve into weird lizard creatures, and they end up having little lizard babies together. The crew retrieve them, but leave the babies behind, and the Doctor is able to restore them with some radiation or something. Yeah, I agree with this episode's rating. It's just weird. I'm not a big fan of Tom Paris anyway, but this episode does allow Robert Duncan McNeill room to show off his acting range, but that's the only thing it has going for it. The body horror is really nasty, with Paris ripping out his own tongue. Ew. It feels very much like a filler episode, and although it explores the theory of Warp 10, it's never brought up again. And who knows what happened to those little lizard kids. If I'm rewatching Voyager, I always skip this episode. Number 5. And the Children Shall Lead. The original series. Score 5.2. And the Children Shall Lead starts off okay. Kirk, Spock and McCoy beam down to a planet and find all the adults dead. And not one of them was wearing a red shirt. It appears to be mass suicide, which is pretty damn dark. Then the children of the Corn show up, and they don't seem to give a shit that everyone's dead. Spock theorizes that the adults were pushed to their actions by an unknown force, but the children seem to be immune. They take the kids up to the ship for ice cream. Now, Star Trek doesn't have the best track record when it comes to likeable kid characters, so I'm sat here watching thinking, man, this is super annoying. The kids then summon Shakespeare's ghost, who tells them to F shit up. And I'm sorry, what kind of hand motion is this Weasley child making? Also, why does security keep allowing these kids to wander onto the bridge? So the kids are taking control of everyone's actions, and people get into fights and stuff over conflicting orders. For a second, I'd forgot they broke orbit, and Jesus, they beamed those 2 red shirts to their death. That's freaking grim. Then someone says there are 430 people on board, and I'm wondering why that many people can't take out 5 little kids. There's no way they can mind control them all. But I'm not Captain Kirk, so what do I know? Anyway, the ghost guy gets bullied into oblivion, and there is some gnarly body horror. But McCoy is happy that the kids are crying, so yay? This episode was really irritating, and I couldn't really care about what happened to those kids. Uhura was given nothing to do but worry about her youth and beauty, which sucks. I've got nothing positive to say about this episode. I thought it was really boring and annoying. Number 4. Code of Honor. The Next Generation. Score 5.2. Code of Honor is definitely a choice. This episode is cringy and hard to watch, but not in an ironic way, as it takes itself seriously. Where do I start with this one? So, the story is, Enterprise stops by Ligon 2 because they have a rare vaccine that is needed on a Federation planet, and Picard is to open treaty negotiations. So far, so good. Until the Ligons, or whatever the species is called, beam down holding spears and rolling out the red carpet for their leader Lutan. Lutan scoffs at Natasha Yar, a woman, being in a security role. Now, they're supposed to be making nice with this new race, but Yar kicks the crap into Lutan's right-hand man. Rude! Lutan and his landing party spend a little time on Enterprise, and it's just really awkward from the get-go. From the weird demonstration of Aikido in the holodeck to everyone's line delivery, which seems really stiff and uncomfortable. I don't know if this is the result of it being only the 4th episode of the first series, but the acting on this one is really remedial. So Lutan kidnaps Yar for reasons. Something about it being important in their culture to steal something of great value from the other leader. Anyway, to abide by the rules of Lutan's culture, Picard has to go down to the planet and ask for Yar back in front of everyone. They stick to being nice because they really need this vaccine. That's Beverly's only function in this episode, to constantly remind everyone of this fact. At the celebration to give Yar back, Lutan decides that actually he likes Yar and wants to replace his current wife with her. His wife is outraged and challenges Yar to a struggle to the death. Not a fight, a struggle. It gets worse when Lutan says that women are unimportant except for the land they own, and the weird tribal music throughout this episode doesn't make things any better. So Yar and the wife fight with big spikes on their hands, and it's all very embarrassing. So there is very little going for this episode, except a nice scene between Data and Geordi, which has nothing to do with the main plot. However, what I will say is I liked the underlying message of this episode, which was how restrictive the Prime Directive is when dealing with hostile aliens. And Picard has to go through all their codes of honor rather than disable them and take Tasha back by force. I like the exploration of this idea, but the execution was terrible. Number 3. The Fight. Voyager. Score 5.1. I honestly think this episode is ranked so low because it involves Chakotay and everyone seems to dislike him. His other episodes that don't revolve around Seska all rank pretty low. Cathexis, which I love, has a 6.8. Initiations, which I also enjoy, has a 6.6. Tattoo is 6.3. Unforgettable has a 6.4. I just feel people don't like him. I can understand in a way because after Seska left, Chakotay's character wasn't developed at all, and then he got thrown together with 7 and 9 right at the end, which made no sense. But I like Chakotay as a character, which is why I don't agree with the fight having such a low score. So this one is about Voyager getting stuck in chaotic space, and if they don't get out of it, they're pretty screwed. Chakotay is super cranky and wants nap time, but he's the only link to the aliens that live in chaotic space. So the doc wants him to remember what's happened so far. Time for a flashback. Chakotay was running his boxing program when he saw a weird anomaly right before he was knocked out. The doctor patches him up and notices something weird in his scans, but no time to investigate that right now because Chakotay is needed on the bridge. Voyager has parallel parked right in the middle of chaotic space and they're not getting out anytime soon. While in his quarters, Chakotay hears voices and sounds from his boxing program and starts seeing things. The doctor does some science and discovers that a repressed gene in Chakotay has been reactivated. Chakotay freaks out because he thinks he's going to die a crazy old man like his grandfather. In chaotic space, they find another ship that is beyond help, but an autopsy of some of the crew shows that they were also experiencing hallucinations. Probably not ones that involved running around in shorts calling yourself the Marquis Mauler. When Chakotay has another hallucination, he, the doctor, and the captain believe that the aliens in chaotic space are trying to get a message to them. Chakotay doesn't want to listen, but the captain convinces him to give it a try. He gets more and more delirious, getting stuck inside more boxing-related hallucinations. And when he gets out of it, he's so hysterical the doctor has to sedate him. With the ship in grave danger, the captain gets the doctor to remove the block on Chakotay's gene entirely, and he's pulled back into another hallucination in which the aliens speak to him through the crew and deliver a message. Chakotay goes to the bridge, plots a new course, and hopes for the best. Voyager gets out of chaotic space, Chakotay passes out, and the doctor deactivates his crazy old man gene. While this isn't a great episode, it's not bad either. It's nice that they decided to actually do something with Chakotay for once and explore his family's mental health history. I like episodes where one of the main cast is in some sort of trouble, so this one was fine for me. I can think of plenty of other Voyager episodes that are worse than this one. Number 2. Subrosa. The Next Generation. Score 4.9. Subrosa is when Beverly Crusher's grandma dies, which is sad, but this episode is really weird. While reading her grandma's sex diaries, Beverly discovers that she was shacking up with a 30-something-year-old. Beverly has kinky dreams where a ghost undresses her, and she decides to overshare this information with Deanna. Some old man bursts into Beverly's grandma's house and tells her that her family candle is cursed and to leave the house. Beverly ends up getting all hot and heavy with her grandma's ghost boyfriend Ronan and resigns her commission, something Picard is super pissed about. Beverly and Ronan merge in an uncomfortable, orgasmic way, and it turns out he's some sort of energy life form that has been sleeping with all of Beverly's ancestors for the past 800 years. Until she blows up the candle and bloops him into oblivion. Yeah, this episode is super awkward and weird to watch. I mean, Gates McFadden gives it her all, which is something, but it's just uncomfortable to watch a woman get it on with a ghost. Good points of this episode? The problems with the weather, I guess, which makes the bridge all foggy and causes other odd things to happen around the ship. But that's pretty much all I can say for this one. Number 1. Shades of Grey. The Next Generation. Score 3.3. So I was preparing myself for the worst thing ever due to this episode's pitiful ranking, but it wasn't that bad. Yes, it was kind of boring, and I'll get to that soon. But for it being the worst ranked episode by a country mile, I was expecting a lot worse. The beginning, like most of these episodes, is actually pretty good. Riker gets a boo-boo while on a planet, and it turns out his body has been invaded by a microorganism. Geordi and Data go down to the surface and try and find the cause, with Geordi promising he'll be careful and then immediately splashing to a bunch of water. Despite the music being both repetitive and unnerving, and a really plodding conversation between Picard and Riker, I find the exploration of how someone facing death would act really interesting. So Riker slips into a coma while talking to Deanna. I feel you, bro. I'd slip into a coma too. And Pulaski has to try and find a way to stop the spread of the microorganisms before it kills him. Then the episode goes a little wackadoo and turns into a bunch of flashbacks of different episodes so far. Now, it's been a while since I've watched The Next Gen properly, so I wasn't sure if these were hallucinations or memories at first. There is a montage of Nookie, and then Tasha Yar dies again. This is the point that confirmed I was watching memories. Although I have no idea what the weird conversation between Riker, Guinan and Wesley was all about, but yay, Whoopi Goldberg! The worst parts of this episode are the scenes between Pulaski and Deanna, where they work out that good memories increase the speed of the organism and bad memories slow it down. Fair enough, but they deliver their lines like they're rehearsing a school play.
The feelings were primal. Survival emotions. They must be producing a type of endorphin that's poisonous to the organism.
It's pretty damn bad. Anyway, as I said, bad memories slow down the spread. So we get a montage of grief and Riker getting his ass kicked. This is enough to stop the organism completely and Riker wakes up. All in all, it wasn't that bad. Nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. If I had to rank these episodes, I would reorder them like this. So there you have it. Those were my reviews on the worst rated Star Trek episodes. Do you agree that Shades of Grey was the worst episode ever? Are there any episodes you think should have made it onto the list that aren't? Or any episodes that are rated low but you really enjoyed? Let me know in the comments or come say hi on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and subscribe. I'll speak to you soon, and thanks for watching.